Hello, everybody. Welcome to Keeneland, and thank you for being here on this historic day for the thoroughbred racing community, a day that many of us thought really would never come. The amount of passion and commitment to making our sport safer and more transparent that's in this room doesn't always give way to immediate agreement. We are a spirited bunch. But the fact that we're here today is a testament to how far our industry's come. There were no easy answers or obvious solutions, but building consensus around meaningful change and effective reforms can be done. Before we start the introductions, I'd like to take a moment to thank Leader McConnell for bringing the people standing before us together to make unprecedented progress on an issue that is of the utmost importance to all of us. The integrity of our sport and the safety of our horses sets it apart from all others. So now, it's my sincere pleasure to introduce first Drew Fleming, who's the president and CEO of the Breeders' Cup, to give us a little background on this industry consensus. Drew?
Good afternoon, everyone. As Bill mentioned, I'm Drew Fleming, and I represent the many breeders and owners from around the world that nominate their horses to the Breeders' Cup. It is an honor to be here today amongst such distinguished guests, including members of Thoroughbred's racing's leaders and biggest supporters, which include Leader McConnell and Congressman Barr. Thank you both for your dedication and support of our thoroughbred industry. Thoroughbred racing is rich in history and tradition. It is a global enterprise, and like many equine sports around the world, it celebrates the athletic achievement and our collective appreciation of the horse. Unlike other professional sports with central league offices, thoroughbred racing is regulated at the state level, which has resulted in a patchwork of medication restrictions, inconsistent enforcement and operational requirements, and testing protocols and accountability measures that vary across state lines. Simply put, it is an inefficient system. Our industry needs uniform standards and protocols that are consistently enforced to make sure that integrity and equine safety are top priorities for every track, every horseman, and every race in all 38 state racing jurisdictions. Many best practices and promising safety solutions have been identified, but there is no central authority to ensure compliance or consistency across the board. We owe it to the fans, the public, and most importantly, we owe it to the horse to come together and get this right. As such, I'm honored to announce today the formation of the Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Authority. The formation of the authority was achieved through an impressive and encouraging collaborative effort. We all recognize that our industry has challenges ahead, and it is imperative that we come together as one to bring about positive change. I'd like to thank Senator McConnell for his leadership. He has spent a career forging compromises and bringing people together to achieve positive results. I don't need to point out that our industry has been trying to reach a consensus on these issues for quite a while. But in the spring, Leader McConnell called a meeting to say he was going to bring all sides together to achieve a solution. And he did just that. The legislation and central governance structure that we will share with you today is the direct result of his efforts to engage with all segments of the horse racing industry, including the Jockey Club, Churchill Downs, Breeders' Cup, Keeneland, the Stronach Group, the New York Racing Association, and other major racetracks, racing industry organizations, and the breeders and owners, horsemen, veterinarians, jockeys, and trainers. This unprecedented display of unity sets us up for a new era of collaboration for the enhancement of the safety of the horses that inspire us and the integrity of the sport that defines us. Thanks to Leader McConnell and the willingness of some of racing's major organizations, we stand before you committed and unified on one of the most important days in our sport as we set out on a path for a cleaner and safer industry. The formation of this authority and the introduction of this legislation represents the most comprehensive safety and integrity initiative in the history of the United States thoroughbred racing. This will bring our sport into the 21st century and protect it for future generations to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Drew. And now we'll hear from Bill Carstanjen, who is the CEO of Churchill Downs Incorporated, about some of the purposes of the authority.
Thanks, Bill. Good afternoon, everybody. Drew just described the circumstances surrounding why we came together as an industry to pursue this bill. I will spend a few minutes describing what the bill does and who does it. The bill recognizes a new private self-regulatory entity for the purposes of developing and implementing, one, an anti-doping and medication control program for thoroughbred racing, and two, a racetrack surface and operations safety program. This new regulatory entity will be called the Authority and will consist of 9 members. Bill Lear will talk more about how these members will be selected and work with each other. The authority is overseen and under the jurisdiction of the Federal Trade Commission. The crux of the bill is that this new entity, the authority, will have jurisdiction over the design, implementation, and enforcement of anti-doping and medication controls, as well as racetrack safety protocols. With respect to the anti-doping and medication control program, the authority will contract with the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency, or USADA, for their services in managing and administering the program developed by the authority. The authority may also contract with state racing commissions as it makes sense, both with respect to the medication and control program and racetrack safety program. At its essence, the bill is designed to create uniformity, consistency, and accountability across all the various states which conduct thoroughbred horse racing, so that our fans and industry participants can be certain of the safety and integrity of our great sport. This bill reflects a great deal of work by many of the industry's leaders and is, in my view, an excellent step forward. Now Bill Lear will say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill and the other speakers here today. I'm here as Vice Chairman of the Jockey Club, speaking on behalf of our Chairman, Stuart Janney, and our entire Board of Stewards. Today is a watershed moment in the life of the American equine industry, and it would not have occurred but for the leadership and commitment of an amazing array of people and organizations. There are too many to recognize individually, but there are some that deserve special thanks. First, Congressman Andy Barr, who is here today, and his colleague, Paul Tonko from New York, who were the co-sponsors of the original HIA, Horse Racing Integrity Act, which has been pending in different sessions of Congress since 2015. Also, Senators Gillibrand and McSally, the Senate sponsors of the companion legislation, and most importantly, here today, Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, whose leadership, involvement, and should I say gentle persuasion were extraordinarily important in bringing this about. The legislation and the private self-regulatory organization we are announcing today represent a coming together of 2 initiatives, the success of which is critical to the safety of our human and equine athletes and the integrity of our sport. On the one hand has been the legislative involvement going back to 2015 that we call the HIA, that was led by the Jockey Club, the Breeders' Cup, the Water Hay Oats Alliance, known as WOA, Keeneland, USADA, the Humane Society of the United States, and others, to reform and dramatically enhance our medication and anti-doping system. More recently, but equally important, was the creation of the Thoroughbred Safety Coalition, led by Churchill Downs, Keeneland, NYRA, the Breeders' Cup, Stronach Group, and Del Mar, which had as its goals, and has as its goals and its programs to provide the safest possible environment for our human and equine athletes to train and race. By merging these two into a single entity, as Bill Carstanjen said, under the umbrella of and attached to the Federal Trade Commission, we will now, for the first time, be able to develop and implement uniform, rigorous national standards on both of those two sides of the house and enforce compliance with the rules. The authority will be governed by an independent board chosen by a blue ribbon panel drawn from business, sports, and academic circles. The majority of its board will be independent, meaning persons from completely outside of the equine industry, and the minority of the members will be drawn from recommendations of groups within the industry. None will have current involvement, therefore no conflicts, nothing to gain or lose by the rules considered and the rules adopted. But from the expertise within the industry, I'm talking about groups representing trainers, owner breeders, jockeys, regulators, tracks, all the major constituencies from within the industry. This board will be supported by two substantive standing committees. Again, on the one hand, medication and anti-doping with expertise from within and without the industry, and on the other hand, track safety, and a third standing committee, which will be the evolution of the Blue Ribbon Committee into a permanent nominating committee to ensure that we always have top quality people, the kind we would want to regulate the industry, and all with no conflicts. And last but not least, the enforcement entity will be USADA, the United States Anti-Doping Agency, the gold standard in preventing performance-enhancing drugs and methods in sports. The hallmark of this entire program will be independence, industry expertise, and effective enforcement. The Jockey Club looks forward to working with all other persons and organizations that want to see enhanced safety and integrity in our sport in supporting this legislation and this authority. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. And with that, it is my extreme pleasure to introduce Shannon Arvin, who's going to introduce our special speakers after this. Shannon, effective tomorrow, actually assumes the role as President-elect of the Keeneland Association and will take the role in full as President and CEO of Keeneland upon my retirement, January 1st. So Shannon, with that, I'll turn it over to you for those special introductions.
Thank you, Bill. Standing here is such a privilege and an honor, and especially doing so on the eve of my becoming president-elect of Keeneland Association. I can't tell you how much this initiative strengthens my optimism and hope for a bright future for our sport. Leader McConnell needs little introduction. His work and his results really do speak for themselves. He has worked tirelessly for Kentucky businesses and families in Washington, and we have witnessed his hard work and his unique ability to get things done. Leader McConnell has been a good friend of the thoroughbred industry, and we're grateful for his leadership on these important issues to the industry, the sport, and most importantly, the horse. It's my distinct privilege to introduce Majority Leader Mitch McConnell.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is indeed a big day and a momentous occasion for thoroughbred horse racing, which we all love all across Kentucky. When people think of Kentucky, they think of horses, they think of the Derby, think of Keeneland, and I don't have to tell an audience full of people who are thoroughly familiar with this industry, we've had some differences among various segments of this wonderful sport. And when I saw in the Washington Post, of all places, an editorial saying thoroughbred horse racing should be abolished, I gasped, and when I got past the initial shock of it, thought it might be a good time to talk to all the various players and see one more time if it were possible for all of us to get together. I particularly want to salute Congressman Andy Barr, who's been the pioneer in searching for a solution that could bring everybody together and reassure the public and all of those who follow this wonderful sport that that is being conducted properly. Most of horse racing's prominent members, leaders, are Kentuckians, and I'm certainly proud of that. This Saturday, the eyes of the world will be on the Commonwealth of Kentucky for the Derby. Keeneland will host its October meet, and then the Breeders' Cup once again this November here at Keeneland. As I just said, competitors and spectators all the world over will come to the Bluegrass State and watch as Kentucky leads. Although Kentucky's at the front of the pack, thoroughbred racing is a national and even international sport. Just like other major sports, horse racing deserves, as Bill Lear pointed out and others have pointed out, uniform standards and guidelines that will help protect this sport and the Kentucky workers who support it. We've seen painful tragedies on the track in recent years. Doping scandals have rocked the horse racing community. These challenges pose a threat, not only to this industry, but also to the 24,000 Kentuckians who work in it. As I indicated, the Washington Post said we should have been put out of business. If we want to preserve horse racing and its future, we needed to act. We owe it to the horses, we owe it to the jockeys, we owe it to the trainers, the breeders, and fans to make thoroughbred racing as fair and as safe as possible. Earlier this year, we had a chance on a telephone conversation to begin the discussion of the necessity and the urgency of getting a solution. Because of Kentucky's leading role in this sport, that means getting Keeneland, Churchill Downs, Breeders' Cup, the Jockey Club, and other industries leaders on board. They're all right here behind us, everybody who makes up the leadership. As I said, the pioneer in all of this was Congressman Andy Barr, who was searching for a solution for the last few years and has been an integral player in getting us to where we are today. The Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Authority we're announcing today is a critical part of that solution. This board can help set national standards to promote fairness, increase safety, and help preserve the sport. Since the board, as Bill pointed out, will be composed of both industry leaders and independent members, it would also bring a new level of transparency. The new authority will be responsible for addressing medication use, track conditions, and other safety standards to protect equine athletes. They'll also oversee increased uniformity and compliance in labs. Other national sports have independent governing bodies. We decided horse racing should as well. For my part, I'll be introducing the Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Act in the Senate. I might say that I've had some preliminary discussions with Dianne Feinstein from California, who's had an ongoing concern about this and an interest in it. We anticipate we'll have bipartisan support. This is not a particularly bipartisan place we're in right now in Congress, as you may have noticed, but we're hopeful that a subject like this can overcome the partisanship that's been pretty much on full display as we get closer and closer to the election. It would give federal recognition and enforcement authority for the board to develop uniform baseline standards. With the weight of the federal government behind the board, we can improve current regulations. We can better protect every competitor and give each of them a fair shot at the winner's circle. I'm extraordinarily proud, as I indicated, of Congressman Barr's role in this. I'm grateful. He will be working on this over in the House, and we'll coordinate our efforts to try to move this through the Congress as rapidly as possible. A bipartisan group of senators have also expressed an interest in a similar bill. I think Bill Lear mentioned them. We need an outcome, obviously, to protect this sport for everyone on the track and in the grandstand. The history and excellence of thoroughbred racing deserves nothing less. Thank you.
Congressman Andy Barr has represented the 6th District well, working for Kentucky, which means working to improve horse racing. Andy's grandfather, J.B. Faulkner, was actually instrumental in the early days of Keeneland through his broadcast career and as Keeneland's first publicist in 1955. Congressman Barr understands the importance of horse racing to our state and our nation. He is a staunch supporter of our industry, and it's my privilege and honor to introduce Congressman Andy Barr.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Shannon. Well, today is a great day for Kentucky and for the 6th Congressional District, well known as the horse capital of the world, as our leaders from our signature equine industry have come together to solidify the future of horse racing for generations to come. There is no better time to make this announcement than in the week leading up to a rather unconventional Kentucky Derby. Throughout my time in Congress, I've worked diligently to enact policies that will promote economic growth and investment in this key Kentucky industry. Thoroughbred horse racing is not just part of our culture and our heritage. It is also a major source of jobs and economic opportunity for our people. In fact, the industry is responsible for 44,100 direct jobs and 16,394 indirect jobs in Kentucky. So we must secure its future. I've always believed that the future prosperity of this beautiful sport depends on uniformity of the rules of racing. Currently regulated by 38 separate racing jurisdictions, the horse racing industry labors under a patchwork of conflicting and inconsistent state-based rules governing prohibited substances, lab accreditation, testing, and penalties for violations, and as in much need for certainty and reform to achieve safety, integrity, and fair competition. The proposal the speakers before me have outlined builds on the bipartisan legislation I have introduced in the House of Representatives each Congress with my Democrat colleague Paul Tonko of New York, who represents another great racetrack, Saratoga. And that has aided educating members about the industry and persuaded our colleagues that horse racing is a matter of interstate commerce and that Congress has the constitutional authority to regulate it. As I've said many times, this legislative effort is not about more regulation. It is about creating a single nationwide set of rules that will result in smarter, more effective, and streamlined regulation for the industry. Today's announcement is the culmination of years of work and negotiation to develop uniform racing standards under one independent regulatory authority. The effort in the House has been a long-term project and hard fought, but that hard work and that persistence has paid off. The consensus we are here to announce and celebrate today not only accelerates our momentum, It is propelling us down the home stretch, and I'm confident it will advance the safety, integrity, and international competitiveness of American horse racing. I want to thank the coalition of organizations that have supported my legislation from the very beginning, including the Water, Hay, Oats Alliance, the Jockey Club, Breeders' Cup International, Keeneland, the Kentucky Thoroughbred Association, NYRA, TOBA. But today I want to additionally thank Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell for his outstanding leadership on this issue, not only introducing companion legislation, but legislation that I believe materially improves on our bill by adding a focus on track surface safety and by making reasonable changes that have enabled us to enlarge our coalition of support and bring more organizations within the industry together in support of our legislation. In particular, I want to thank Bill Carstanjen and the Board of Directors of Churchill Downs for working with our coalition and joining the cause, and for Dale Romans and others with the HBPA for sharing his influential voice in support of this legislation. And I just spoke with my co-sponsor, Paul Tonko. He and I agreed, and we hereby announce our intention to introduce a manager's amendment to our bill in the House to bring it into mirror image conformity with the bill Leader McConnell has introduced or is going to introduce in the Senate. The Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Authority established in the bill will be tasked with creating uniform national standards regarding prohibited and permitted substances for use in the horse, setting up an accreditation system for labs to test drug samples, and to develop regional standards regarding racetrack safety. Currently, the world of sports is engaged in a seismic shift, with nearly every professional sports organization making adjustments to their respective sports. Now is the time for the horse racing industry to do just the same and to take this moment to embrace change that will not only ensure the safety of our equine and human athletes, but also attract a new generation of fans to solidify the sport for years to come. Today's announcement is a vitally important step in advancing reforms to protect our equine athletes and jockeys. It will also secure the thousands of both direct and indirect jobs in the 6th Congressional District and beyond that depend on a thriving horse racing and breeding industry. I look forward to continuing to work with Leader McConnell and the horse racing industry to bring this proposal across the finish line. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Congressman Barr. And for all of us, Senator McConnell, thank you for your extraordinary leadership on this issue, support of our industry over these many, many years, and commitment to Central Kentucky and to the things that are important to us. And Congressman Barr, for your passionate, continuing commitment to all of the things that are important to so many of us, for our athletes, and that never give up attitude that you have exhibited today, and again for all the ones that have been mentioned that have been a part of this. The Jockey Club, Churchill Downs, and the Breeders' Cup, for the great discussions that have been happening over this time and the spirit of compromise that's brought us to this historic moment when we're able to do things that are meaningful and that this industry has strived to do, that the horses deserve and our hard-working people in our industry deserve. This is our moment. It's our opportunity, and it's our commitment and dedication to make this happen in these coming months.